Begin today the Gemara on Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis, 8 lines up from the bottom of the Amud where it says Hahu Ovda. So we're talking here about the halachas of Yayin Nesach, wine by a goy, the wine that a goy touched. The Gemara before spoke about the fact that there's a difference between a goy just touching the wine or a goy that's meshachshech, which means that he sort of agitates his hands inside the...
When a horse makes his tail, that's meshachshech.
Could be. So over here as well, we're talking about a person that's meshachshech, his hands in the wine. Just a second. Okay, right over there. So over here, let's see the story that happened. Let's see. Zakta Gemara Hahu Ovde Dahave b'Mechuza. There was this incident that happened in the city Mechuza. Also, a guy comes, and he walks into a store of a Yid. So he asks them, do you have any wine to sell me? They tell him, no, we have no wine. Apparently, they didn't want to serve him as a customer. So what happened? There was wine sitting there in a bucket. So this guy goes, and Shadi Bey Yadeh, he puts his hand into this wine, and Shich Bey, he agitates his hands in it, sort of to prove, look, this is wine right over here. And then, so still the storekeeper didn't want to sell him this wine. Amalahu, the guy says to him, Hailav Chamru, you tell me you have no wine. This is not wine here. Shokle, the storekeeper went, the Yid, he went and took this, this individual, the storekeeper, Berische, with his anger that he wanted this guy out of there, and Shadye Lidana. He took that wine in the bucket and he poured it into a barrel of wine. In other words, telling the guy, I'm not selling you this wine. So, yeah, that's what happened. Now the question though is, the guy stuck his hand into the wine. And not only did he stick his hand into the wine, he was meshachshech his hand in the wine. Is this wine going to be mutter or not? So the Gemara brings that Rava allowed to sell this wine to a guy. Yeah, Rava was the Rav, and he lived in the city of Mechuza. So he paskined that you're allowed to sell this wine to a guy, which means that the wine is still going to be asa to drink. Because the gzeira of Chachamim not to drink from the wine of a guy, which is because of chasnas, not to come to marry with them, that applies even if the guy just touches it. But to have a null from it, the issue of Yayin Nesach, which means that when the guy has the wine where there's a concern that maybe he used it to pour for his Avoda Zara, that doesn't apply here. Why? Because when the guy put his hand into the wine, we can see from what happened. Why did he put his hand into the wine? Because he just wanted to prove to the Yid that this is wine. So even when he was meshachshech, he agitates his hand in the wine. We know that he's only doing it for the purpose to show the Yid that there's wine here. So therefore, there's no chash that the guy was also thinking additionally in his action that for the sake of Avoda Zara. So therefore, it's mutter to sell. If legalei Rav Huna bar Chinene, Rav Huna bar Breder Rav Nachman, but Rav Huna bar Chinene and Rav Huna, the son of Rav Nachman, they argued in Rava. And they said that in this case, the wine is going to be also not only to drink, but it's also going to be also bahana. What's the reason it's also bahana? So as the Rishonim explained, the Ran and other Rishonim here explained that the point of their Isser was that in any case where you see that the guy put his hands into the wine for a certain purpose, there's a chash, there's a concern that besides that purpose that we can see, maybe he additionally, while he was meshachshech, could also be thinking that he's doing it for his Avoda Zara as well. And so just the fact that we can see that he was only doing it to prove the Yid that this is wine, that you have wine to sell me, that doesn't mean that it's not possible that he also was meshachshech. That was the minig. By the Goyim in those times, Yayin Nesach, their minig was that they were meshachshech, that they would stir their hands or agitate their hands in the wine for Yayin, for Avoda Zara. So maybe over here when he was meshachshech, he was also thinking that I'm doing this for the sake of Avoda Zara. Rava held the fact that we know that he put it in there to prove to the Yid that it was wine, we don't have any concern that additionally he maybe did it for Avoda Zara. That's the nekuda here of this machlokes. So now what happened? Nafak she put it at Rava, the shofris, the announcement came out from the Bezdin of Rava Vishoro. They announced that this is allowed. And the Nafik she put it at Rav Huna bar Chinene, Rav Huna bar Rav Nachman, but then the announcement came out from the Bezdin of Rav Huna bar Chinene and Rav Huna, the son of Rav Nachman, V'asri, that they said that it's not allowed. In other words, the case here was that these Amiroim, Rav Huna bar Chinene, Rav Huna bar Rav Nachman, they weren't in the same place in Mechuza together with Rava. If they would have been in the same place, they would have had a conversation about this. Is it mutter? Is it aser? Rava was in mechuzah. They were in a different place, and each one in their city announced regarding this case that it's aser or that it's mutter. Okay, but then what happened? Ikla Rav Huna bereid Rav Nachman lemechuzah. Rav Huna bereid Rav Nachman that argued with Rava found himself. He came to mechuzah where Rava is. So Amalei Rava le Rav Yakim Shamei. Rava says to Rav Yakim, which was his servant, Teroik Gali, close, lock the door well. Deloi neise inshid initrid. So nobody should come in and bother me and ask me questions about this psaktin that I paskin, because he knew that Rav Huna bereid Rav Nachman, which argued with his psaktin, is here, and he didn't want him to come in and ask him all kinds of questions on his psaktin. Okay, now here Rashi explains regarding the pshat in the Gemara, based on what we'll see from the continuation of the Gemara, that really at this point, Rava retracted his psaktin. Rava agreed to them at this point that this case will be aser. We are going to be chayshish that when the guy put his hands in the wine, he maybe additionally could also be thinking for his Avoda Zara. And the Gemara will later say that Abaya had an argument with Rava about this, and Abaya proved Rava that it will be aser. Okay, Elamai, he didn't want to have a conversation with Rav Huna bereid Rav Nachman about this, that he's also going to ask him similar questions that Abaya asked him. So he said, lock the door. But what happened? Rav Huna bereid Rav Nachman did come in. He somehow got into Rava. So he came and he asked Rava, what's the halacha in this case where we know why the guy put his hands in the wine? He's just putting it in to prove that it's wine. Are we also chayshish that he additionally was stirring his or agitating his hand there for Avoda Zara? Amalei. So Rava answers him, aser. And afil ba'no, yes, it's aser, and it's going to be aser even ba'no. We are chayshish. So Rav Huna bereid Rav Nachman asks him. Apparently, he didn't know that at that point Rava already retracted from his psaktin. But v'hamarhu da'ama shichshich in. Shichshich ein oise yayin nesach. But the master, you Rava, the one that said that in such a case, when the guy agitates his hands in this wine, and we know that he was really doing it mainly for a different purpose, that we're not concerned about yayin nesach. So how are you now saying that it's asaba? No. So Rava answers and says, well, you misunderstood when you heard that I paskin this, you misunderstood. When did I say what I said, that it would be mutter bano? That means lebar midame dahu chamra. That's besides the value of the money of that wine. Because what happened here in this case? The Yid took the wine that was in a bucket and then he poured it all into a barrel. And Rava said, oh, it's mutter. You can sell this barrel of wine. So Rava now is saying, you know what I meant? I meant to say you can sell this barrel of wine, but besides the what you earn from this barrel, the money you get, that's the value of that bucket of wine that was poured in, that you're not going to be able to have enough from. As we learned before, what do you do with that kind of a money that you can't have enough from? You have to take that money and throw it into the Yam HaMelech. The meida hu chamre mi amri. Did I ever mean to say that even this wine from that bucket that was poured in there, the value, that money, you could also have enough from? You can't have enough from that. Now Rashi here says an interesting thing. Rashi says that be'emes, Rava didn't have to answer this. Rava could have just told Rav Huna bereid Rav Nachman that, yeah, you're right, l'chatchila I paskin that the whole thing is mutter, including the value of that bucket of wine that was poured in there. But I had charata. Abaya convinced me and it showed me that I'm wrong and I had charata. But Rashi says Rava was embarrassed to say that he paskined wrongly before and he had charata. So therefore Rava excused his previous psaktin. Rava said what I paskined before was not benegayat to the whole entire barrel of wine. What I paskined before his mutter was only benegayat to the barrel of wine minus the value of that bucket. That's what Rashi says.
I know by selling it, he's allowed to sell it to a goy.
Correct. Because a yid can't drink from drinking from this wine is definitely not a shaila. It's for sure asar, because as soon as a guy touches it, the gzeira of chachamim regarding the drinking, that's for sure asar. Yeah, the question is about selling it to another guy. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara.
If you're going to say, the storekeeper knows he's going to be selling it to a guy. It was dafka this guy you don't want to sell it to. He went through all of this. Give it to sell to the guy.
For whatever reason, he didn't want to serve this customer.
Dafka this guy.
This customer, yeah. Okay, so this is the pshat of Rashi here in this Gemara. And like as I mentioned, Rashi is explaining here that really Rava l'chatchila had charata, and he just didn't want to say clearly to Rav Huna bereid Rav Nachman that he did. Taisus over here is a long Taisus that disagrees with Rashi and changes the Girsa in the Gemara and says it's not mistaver that Rava had charata, and he doesn't say openly about this. Rava is going to be embarrassed to say that I had charata. Why should he be embarrassed? Abaye proved him that he was wrong, and Rava should say. And also Taisus says that Rava is going to lock the door in order that Rav Huna Bereda, Rav Nachman shouldn't come in. Where do you find the Gemara such a thing? That he's locking the door and not letting him come in. So Taisus changes the Girsa and has a whole different shot in the Gemara. But this is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara, so we're going to stick to that for now. Okay, so now the Gemara here brings, as I mentioned, what had happened when Rava had charata from his original psaktin. Omar Rava, so Rava says, Ki asoy Pumpadisa, when I came to Pumpadisa, so as mentioned, Rava was a mechuzah, but when Rava came to Pumpadisa, Akfon Nachmeni Shmaitase Umasnite the Osa. Nachmeni, which is Abaya. Abaya was called Bar Nachmeni, and the reason is Abaya was a Yosim, and he was raised by Rabbi Bar Nachmeni, I believe it is, right? So he was a son of Nachmeni, but he was raised by his uncle, I think it is, and therefore he got the nickname of Nachmeni because he was raised by Rabbi. Okay, that's the taich of this name Nachmeni that Abaya had. So Abaya Nachmeni, Rabbi says, surrounded me. He asked me questions from Shmaitase, which means other Amirayim that paskin different than me in this case, and also Masnita from a Braisa, the Asa, and that they paskin that it's Asa. Shmaitase, so the halachas that he brought from other Amirayim that paskin in this case, Tahu of the Dahava ben Erda, there was the same kind of case in Erda, and Va'asa Shmuel, and Shmuel said it was Asa. But Tveria, this incident happened in Tveria as well, Va'asa Rabbi Yechanan, and Rabbi Yechanan said that it's Asa. So therefore, Abaye is asking Rava, how are you paskening against these great Amirayim that said that it's Aser? V'amri lei. So Rava says, I answer Abaye. Maybe the reason why Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan pasken it's Aser is not a Isser me'ikar adin. You find in the Gemara sometimes Amirayim were machmer in certain cities because the people in the cities were Amiratzim. And they didn't want that these people should start being lenient in these cases. So therefore, even a case that should have been mutter, they asked. So maybe over here, the reason why Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan asked is because they don't want people to come and be makel in the issues of Yayin Nesach. So they asked. V'amali, and Abaya answered me, Tveria v'Nerda einam b'nei Torah. You're saying that the cities of Tveria and Nerda are not people that are b'nei Torah, they're Amaratzim. The Mechuzah b'nei Torah. Well, your city of Mechuzah is b'nei Torah, and therefore, in your case, you can be matter this. If they're not b'nei Torah, so then your city is also not b'nei Torah. So you should answer it as well. So this is the rayas that Abai brought him from the Psaktin of Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan. And then also he brought him Masnita. He brought him a Braisa that disproves this Psaktin. What's the Braisa? Because the Braisa tells us the Argadamim. What's an agadmin? This is the marketplace inspector. So you had apparently a government official, an inspector in the marketplace that would come around to make sure that everybody's weights and the different things that they have in the store that they're selling is honest. So this agadmin, he comes around, and this person is selling wine. So what did he do? Shekodach b'meinekes. He drills a hole in the barrel and he puts in a meinekes, which is some kind of a straw. And the hela, and he's drinking from the wine to make sure that the wine that's being sold is good quality. He's not deceiving people. Or the Yid gave him to drink with a cup, and the guy then went and poured the wine back into the barrel. So now this was a story that happened. And the Chachamim said that this wine now will be aser bahana. That's what it seems, as the Gemara here says. So in other words, the guy didn't really directly touch this wine. He just put a straw inside and drank from the straw. Or from a cup of wine, he poured the cup back into he poured it back into the barrel after he tasted it. And they asked it. So the Gemara says, my love bahana, don't you think that this means that they asked this wine bahana? So what do you see from here that they asked this wine bahana? That even though we know what's the reason why this inspector is tasting from the wine? Because he wants to do it for the purpose of Avoda Zara? No. He's doing it because he wants to inspect the quality of the wine in the marketplace. LMI, but even while he's doing that, and then he pours the wine back in, we're chayshish additionally that maybe he also has a machshava for Avoda Zara. So this refutes the psaktin of Rava. Rava says that when we see the person was meshachshach his hands in the wine, and he was doing it to prove to the storekeeper that there's wine there, we're not chayshish that besides that, maybe he was also thinking about Avoda Zara. So Rava says, from this brisa, there's no question on my opinion. Loi, that's not what it means. When it says that they asked it doesn't mean it was asked by no b'shtiyah. All it means is that it was asked to drink from this wine. So the Gemara says, the isser to drink, if that's all the brisa meant, ihachi listni yimacher. So in such a case, it should have said that it's allowed to be sold. It's only asr to drink, but you're allowed to sell it. That's what it should have said. It shouldn't have just said asruhu, they asr it. And the Gemara proves this from the Sefer. Keduktani Sefer. What does it say in the Sefer of this brisa? That charum oivik kechavim. This guy that's a charum. What's this charum? Rashi says a person that's meshugah. Person that's out of his mind, and a person that fights with people, and he does things in haste without thinking. That's how Rashi describes this charam. So this guy, this charam, he's not thinking. Shahishid yadei lechavis. He put his hands into a barrel of wine. Okesavishal shemeni. He didn't even realize that it's wine. He thought it's oil. V'nimtzis shal yain, and it turns out that it's wine. Zeh haya ma'aseh. So this incident happened, and va'amru, and here the chachamim paskin yemacher, that you're allowed to sell it. So you see from the Sefer of the Brisa, when it wants to say that it's mutter to drink and it's allowed to be sold, it uses the term yemacher. Now this case is different because when he sticks his hand into this barrel, he didn't even know b'chlal that it's wine. Over here you can't have the shaila. Maybe he stuck it in his hands for one purpose, but maybe he was also thinking about Avoda Zara. It's not shaykh to say that. He didn't even know b'chlal that it's wine. He thought that it's oil. And therefore it says yemacher. But in the Reisha, where this inspector poured the wine back into the barrel, or he drank from a straw and there's wine that went back into the barrel. So you could say that besides the inspecting that he was doing, maybe he knew it's wine, maybe he was also thinking for Avoda Zara. And over there it's aser. That's why it uses the term the Braisa asru. To Yufta the Rave. So this refutes Rave's opinion to Yufta. So this is where Abaye brought the Braisa that was a refutation for Rave's opinion. Okay, so over here you see that the issue of this wine in this barrel, in this case of the inspector, the guy didn't even actually directly touch the wine. Over here you see, even if it's just pouring the wine back or the wine comes back from a straw, it'll also be aser. This is similar to what the Gemara says before regarding the guy that was coming down from a tree and he was holding a lulav in his hand and he touched the wine through the lulav. Over here as well, he's pouring the wine. So because he's holding the cup of wine in his hand and he's pouring it into the barrel, that's enough of a reason that it's like he's touching it. And it's going to be aser as well.
Shich, you have to touch it, mamish, but yeah.
Usually, usually it's all, but it's directly. But over here, this is B'chlal Rashi's shitta. I think Taisus argues in the same we had before in Dafnat Zayin and Aleph. Yeah, Taisus argues. But Rashi holds even indirectly, it'll also be aser. Okay, now the Gemara brings Rabbi Yechanan ben Arza, Rabbi Yosef ben Noirai, Haviyasvi v'Kashasa Chamre. They were sitting together and they were drinking wine. Asa hu Gavre, this individual came along. Amrulei, so they said to him, Ta ashkinon, why don't you serve us? The wine that we have here in this barrel, why wouldn't you pour us some wine? Now, they didn't realize who this person was. They thought he was a Yid. Now, the basa, the Rama Lakasa, after this individual poured them their wine, it turned out that he was a guy. So now, what's the halacha? Are they allowed to drink this wine that this guy poured them? Chad asar afilabano. So one of them said that now this wine that he poured us, since it's a guy, this wine will be asar even bahano. V'chad shari afil b'shtiyah. And another opinion said not only is this wine mutter bahano, it's actually even mutter to drink. So it was a machlekes min hakatza lakatza. So the Gemara explains the basis of this machlekes. Amr Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, Manda asar, the one that said that it's asar shaper asar. There's logic to the fact that he says it's asar. Or Manda shari, and the opinion that says that it's allowed shaper shari. We could understand what his reasoning was to say that it would be mutter. And the Gemara explains, Manda asar, the opinion that says that it's asar, the reason is because Meimer Omar, this guy that's pouring the wine for these chachamim that are sitting here, this guy says to himself, so kedaite de rabbanan kihani shichre kashasu. Do you think that these chachamim, such prominent individuals, you think that they drink beer? They're not drinking beer. Elavadai hai chamrehu. And therefore, if they're asking me to pour them from this barrel, whatever beverage is in it, he's assuming that what's inside this barrel, it's probably wine. That they're drinking wine. If in naschei, and therefore when he poured it, you have to be chayshish that besides the fact that he's serving them, he could be doing it and thinking that he's having a mind for his Avoda Zara. And therefore it becomes aser, not only to drink, but even aser bahana. That's the opinion that says that it's completely aser. On the other hand, mandashari, the opinion that says that this wine will be mutter even to drink, Shapishari, the reason why it can understand why he would say that it would be mutter even to drink, because over here the Svar is the opposite. Meimer Omar, this guy says to himself, so kedaitach, do you think that it's possible that Rabbanan Kihani, these Chachamim on this level, Chamre Kashasu, that they could be drinking wine, Va'amri Lahu Lididi, and they're telling me, Ta'ashkinan, come and pour us wine. The guy knows that the Yidden don't drink wine from a guy. So the guy thinks to himself, these Chachamim are asking me to pour them wine, it can't be that this was mine. Elavadai shichru kashaso. Definitely this is beer. And therefore, the guy doesn't even think that it's wine. He thinks that it's beer. So there's no chash that he was thinking that he's pouring it for his Avoda Zara. Therefore, it's going to be completely mutter. It's similar to the case mentioned before regarding this guy that was, there's a meshuggah, and he put his hands into the wine. He didn't even know it's wine. He thought it was oil. Over here as well, we could assume that this guy thought that it's beer. Okay, so the Gemara clarifies the case here. The guy can't see what it is. He couldn't tell if it's wine or beer. What does this mean? That the machlokes here, what the guy was thinking. The guy could see what it is. Says the Gemara Balelia. No, it happened by night, so he couldn't see. That's why it became machlokes, whether the guy was aware of what he was doing. Did he know it's wine or not? In fact, the Gemara, even at night, you should be able to smell the aroma if it's wine or not. Answers the Gemara, it's fresh wine that doesn't have that aroma that he was able to smell. Okay, but the Gemara still asks, but how is the guy serving this wine? There's the wine in a barrel, and the guy is taking a pitcher and sticking the pitcher into this barrel, and that's how he's serving him the wine. So if he's touching this pitcher, so the guy is touching this wine. How is he touching the wine? By holding the wine in his pitcher. So even if it's shaloi b'chavana, even if he has no kavana to touch the wine and he has no kavana to do anything wrong, but nevertheless v'asa, it's still going to be asa to drink, at least asa b'shtia. Right. So this again over here, according to Rashi, this is Rashi's shitta, that even if the guy is not directly touching the wine, but if he's touching the wine through the pitcher, the fact that he's drawing the wine from the barrel with the pitcher, that's equivalent to touching the wine itself. Just like the guy that touched the wine with a branch when he came down from the tree over here as well, he's touching the wine by serving it through the pitcher. That's also an issue. So even if it won't be asa bahana, because there's no concern that he's pouring for Avoda Zara, but it should be asa to drink. Or according to Taisus, you're going to have to say the pshat in the Gemara here is that Taisus here speaks about it, that he must have touched the wine with his hands directly when he was drawing the wine with the pitcher. So therefore it should be aser. Says the Gemara, so this case here, the machlekes that these Tanoim had, it must be the case is the kamairik aruki, that he was emptying the wine. He poured them the wine without drawing it from the pitcher. He was emptying the wine directly from the barrel. And therefore, in such a case, there's no problem. So therefore, this wine that he's pouring, and the wine is stirring, and it's agitating, it's moving around, but he's doing this shaloi b'chavana. We know that he's doing it not for Avoda Zara. We could see he's doing it in order to serve them. And he's not touching it directly. Anytime the wine stirs around and it comes from his kayach, not directly by touching it, shaloi b'chavana, and it's happening shaloi b'chavana, loy gazer be'rabanan. In this case, there is no gzeira of the chachamim on this. Therefore, according to the opinion that says that the guy was not aware of what's going on over here, it's going to be completely mutter. Okay, so now here, just one detail. There's a few different discussions about this in Mefarshim and this Gemara. Just one detail to explain here. Even though the guy is like he's directly lifting up the barrel to pour them the wine, but this is not going to be similar to the case where he puts a pitcher into the wine itself to draw the wine, or like a guy that touches the wine with a branch. When a guy touches the wine with a branch, so then the branch is considered to be like an extension of his hand, and therefore it's like he's touching the wine with his hand, or with a pitcher. It's like you could draw the wine with your hands, and it's not so convenient, so you draw it with a pitcher. The pitcher is like an extension of his hand, so therefore it's going to be like he's touching it. However, when you have the wine that's in the barrel, the wine in the barrel, it's not an extension of you, the barrel. The wine is in the barrel. And now when the guy picks up the barrel, he's picking up just the barrel. You can't consider it to be as if he's touching the wine itself. And therefore over here, when the guy picked up this barrel and poured them the wine, it's going to be mutter. There's no problem. The fact that he touched, it's not considered to be that he touched it. Shaloi b'chavana. We know that he's doing it just to serve them, so there's no issue of yayin nesach, and it's not considered to be that he touched it either, because he poured it directly from the barrel. So therefore, that opinion that says that he didn't know that it's wine says that it's going to be completely mutter.
They're going to Shitosa. They knew the halacha so well that they knew that exactly what steps the guy is going to go through, and therefore the wine is mutter.
Correct.
As opposed to us looking at it, what's going on? What are you asking a guy to serve you wine?
They didn't realize he's a guy. If they would have known that he's a guy, they would have never asked him.
Oh, this is not lechatchila, obviously.
Yeah, lechatchila didn't realize he's a guy. No, you don't have a guy pour you wine. If you're in a restaurant and there's a guyish waiter serving wine, it's because it's mufashal. But otherwise, you don't have him pour you wine. By Minei Rabasi.
At night that he
couldn't see.
He couldn't see it, so therefore you can't have the chash that it was Avoda Zara.
Correct. By Minei Rabasi mit Rabbi Yechanan. Rabasi asked the following shaila from Rabbi Yechanan: Yayin shemaschai oile kachavim, wine that a guy diluted this wine for you. Maschai means mezige. That the wine in the times of the Gemara Mishnah was such strong wine that you had to dilute this wine. So the guy diluted the wine for the Yid. Mahu, what's the halacha? Are you allowed to drink this wine? Now, Amalei, Rav Yechanan, before he answered him the shaila, he asks him, Ve'ema mazgai, why don't you use the usual term? That the guy was maizik, he diluted the wine. Why are you using this term maschai? Amalei, ana k'dechsiv ka'amina. I'm using the term that it says in the pasuk, where it says, Tavcha, Tivcha, Masecha, Mascha Yeina, which means that you dilute the wine. So I'm using the lashon of the pasuk. It's a pasuk in Mishlei. Amalei. So Rabbi Yechanan says to him that l'shalteira la'atzma, lashon teira la'atzma. That is the language of the lashon of a pasuk is one kind of expression, and lashon chachamim la'atzmai, and the lashon, the way you communicate in a halacha amongst chachamim, is a different lashon. So for sake of clarity, you should use the lashon of chachamim, so we should know what you're talking about. Okay, so what's the halacha in this case? Amalei, so Rabbi Yechanan told him that it's aser, that this wine that the guy was maizik, he diluted the wine for the yid, it's going to be aser. Okay, so now, what's the pshat in this iser? Really, based on what we said before, there shouldn't be any iser. The guy didn't touch this wine at all, and the guy is just doing it to dilute the wine. And even though when he's pouring water into the wine, and now that ends up stirring the wine, but it's only coming from kaichai. He's not touching the wine itself. It's just the water that he's pouring into it, and it's when it's kaichai shalei b'chavana. We just said before that it's not going to be a problem. So the Gemara says the reason why he said that it's aser is because mishum lech amrin and nizira. We tell a nazir that is not allowed to drink wine. So we tell a nazir, go from this place. Schar lekarma. Go, take a detour, and go around, and don't come close to the vineyard. Which means it's a siyag, in order for him not to come close to do an aveda. So over here as well, the chachamim, Rabbi Yechanan is paskening and saying that even though me'ikar adin, it should be mutter to drink this wine that the guy diluted for the yid, but nevertheless, similar to the nazir that we tell him to stay far away from the vineyard, over here as well, we pasken and we say to be machmir that you should not drink from this wine. Okay, so therefore it's going to be aser to drink from it. But hana, though, it's not going to be aser, because this is something that is he didn't touch the wine b'chlal. He just poured water into it. It's shalei b'chavana. It's just his kayach. So therefore the hana it'll be mutter. But to drink, we're going to be geyser. We're going to be machmer that you shouldn't drink from it. The Gemara brings a few cases where the same thing happened. Rabbi Yirmiyah ikla lesafsa. He was in this place, Safsa. He saw that it was this wine, that the Goyim are diluting it, and the Ishti Yisrael Minei, and Yidden are drinking from this wine. And he also said to them that you should answer this, Mishum lech amrin nezire schar lekarmi. You tell a Nazir, go away, go around, do not come close to the vineyard. Don't come close. So here as well, you don't want to get into the habit of a guy handling wine, that the guy is going to come and prepare and dilute the wine for you. It manami, we learned as well. Amr Rabbi Yechanan, Amr La Amr Abasi, Amr Rabbi Yechanan, Yayin Shemazga Evikachavim, the wine that a guy diluted for a yid, aser, is going to be aser mishum lech Amr Nezide. We tell the nazir to go away. Schar lekarma lesikra, go around and do not get close to the vineyard. Reish Lakish ikla lebatzra. Reish Lakish found himself in the place called Batzra. Batzra may be the Batzra in Iraq, possibly. Chazi Yisrael, he saw their Yidden, the Ka'achli Peiri Dole Maisri. They were eating produce that was untithed. He didn't separate the maestros from it. One second. And he asked them. He asked them to eat from this produce. Another thing, Chazamaya. He also saw that there was a pool of water, or there was a place, an area of water in the ground. The Sagdilu of the Kechavim, that the Goyim are bowing down, they're serving this water as an Avoda Zara. And V'shasi Yisrael, and the Yidden are drinking from this water. V'asaluhu. And he also said that this is Asr. So now what happened? Asla Kamei to Rabbi Yochanan, and then Reish Lakish came back there to Yisrael. He came to Rabbi Yochanan and he told him about this, that he saw what he saw there in Batzra, and he asked them eating these fruits, and he asked them to drink from this water. So Amalei, Rabbi Yochanan tells him, when your coat is still on you from your travel, don't take off your coat. Go right back there. And Zil, Hadar, and go back and tell them that you made a mistake. Both of these Isurim that you said are not Asr. Why? Because what was the confusion of Rabbi Reish Lakish? Batzar, Lav Hainu Batzra. There are two places. There's one place that's called Batzar or Betzer, which was an area in the Ever HaYarden where the Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven inherited this place, and therefore the produce from that location is actually Chayiv in Maasros. And when he was in Batzra, he thought that this is this place of Betzer on the other side of the Yarden, so therefore he told him that this produce is Asr. So he told them, you made a mistake. Tell them Batzra is not Batzra, and they don't have to give Maasros. And also, Mayim, Shal Rabim, the waters that people are worshipping, this waters in Avoda Zara, this is waters that belongs to the public, Ein Asarim. You can't ask the waters of the public, even if you bow down to it. So therefore, both of these things that he asked, you should go back and tell him that it's mutter. Okay, so now here the Gemara, let's just finish the Indian. The Gemara clarifies the detail in what Rabbi Yochanan said, that the Mayim Shal Rabim is not going to be Aser. Rabbi Yochanan Taimei, this follows Rabbi Yochanan's reasoning. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yitzadok, Mayim Shal Rabim, the waters of the Rabbim, of the public, Ein Asarim, will not become Aser. The Gemara asks, only if the water belongs to the public, Ha de Yachid Nesarim. But if this would be an area of water in the ground that would be privately owned, there would be an issue in this when it's being served as an Avoda Zara. Why? Why wouldn't we say, as we learned earlier in the Masechta, this is water that's in the ground. Anything that's attached to the ground does not become an Avoda Zara, does not become asabano. We learned before from the pasuk that it says when Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael, Elehayim al haharim, but not the harim itself, the mountain, the water itself that's attached to the ground does not become aser. So the Gemara explains, the Talshinu Gala. The case over here that Rabbi Yochanan had to use this additional svara that it's mine that belongs to the Rabbim is because this was a water that had a wave, and the wave comes out and it detaches from the pool of water itself, so it's not anymore attached to the ground. Even in such a case where there's a wave that it naturally is flowing and there's a wave and it detaches, soft, but in the end this is still not enough of a reason that it should be asa, because avnei hashani daldalunino. This is similar to a case that we discussed earlier regarding a mountain where there was a rock of the mountain that got dislodged, and it happened on its own. In such a case, the shaila is, what's the halacha? Do I say because it was dislodged, so therefore now it's like a movable item that will become asabano if you serve it as an Avoda Zara? Or do I say nobody ever disconnected it, a person didn't come and do this, there was no tfisas yad adam, it just happened on its own, so therefore maybe it should still be mutter. So there was actually a machlokes about this earlier in the Masechta between Rabbi Yochanan and I think it was the children of Rabbi Chia. Says the Gemara, but based on what we have over here, Testayim, the Rabbi Yochanan, the Amma Asurais. We can now prove that Rabbi Yochanan is the one that would say that in such a case it would be Asr, because here we see that Rabbi Yochanan, the only reason he's saying that you can't Asr this is because it's a Mayim Shal Rabbim. Otherwise it would be Asr because the wave of water disconnects on its own. Says the Gemara, no, the reason we're here, Rabbi Yochanan had to use this additional svara that it's a mayim that belongs to the Rabbim, it's because the Goyim that are there, it's not just that the wave of the water disconnects on its own. They smack the water with their hands, which creates a wave, and then the wave comes out. So therefore over here, it's happening through a tfisas yad adam. There's something that a person is doing this. And therefore over here, you have to have the additional point that Rabbi Yochanan said, that it's still going to be mutter because it's mayim shal rabim, and therefore told Reish Lakish to go back and paskin to them that it's mutter.